Kia ora. I'm Jeremy Couchman, Senior Economist at Kiwibank. Now, we've released our inaugural Household Spending Tracker report, where we've delved deep into Kiwibank's own electronic cards data to get a sense of what overall spending did in the September quarter. And remember that this is the quarter that include Auckland moving to level 3 lockdown. Now, overall spending jumped quite a bit. It increased a little over 20% compared to the June quarter. But a big rebound was expected, given that back in April we were in a nationwide lockdown. Now, what are some of the developments, interesting stuff that's come out of this data? Well, it looks like on the positive that Kiwis have certainly adapted to life under COVID as we've moved up and down alert levels. So looking at Auckland in particular, around the level 3 lockdown, there was the very familiar run up in spending ahead of it, followed by a bit of a dip. But this was nowhere near as exaggerated as we saw last time Auckland went into a level 3 lockdown. So what might be going on here? Well, the big run up or the stockpiling of stuff way back in March on things like toilet paper probably carried us through till now. But also it looks like businesses have learnt to adapt to life under COVID. So they're focused more on online and digital channels where they can. And also where there's been limited face-to-face contact, they've been able to sell things through other ways such as click and collect, which has been popular. Now, the increase in spending, certainly the size has been a surprise, but what has been more surprising is just how sustained this level of spending has been. This can't just simply be explained away as a bit of a sugar rush hit in terms of spending. So what else might be going on here? Well, with our borders being closed, the typical Kiwi who would typically go over and have a winter holiday in the sunnier places just simply couldn't do that this year. So that unspent travel budget looks like it's being redirected domestically. So we certainly have seen where Kiwis have been able to travel domestically over the third quarter. There was a big spend up in domestic airfares and also accommodation. Also, we're spending a lot more time in our homes. So partly that's because many of us are working from home, and we're starting to notice, say, perhaps the odd job that we've put off for a while now and are starting to spend a lot more in our houses. Also, we've seen a big rebound in the housing market in general, and when you have a buoyant housing market and more activity and more turnover, you just generally get a big spend on things that are related to housing as well. So when we look at Kiwibank's customers, the amount of spending at hardware stores has been significantly up. It's running around about 80% at the moment, 80% above where it was in the months leading up to the nationwide lockdown. Now, what are some of the other interesting trends that we've seen in the data? Well, there's certainly been some changes in habits around spending, and this may be permanent. We'll just have to wait and see. But there's been some good developments and also not so good. So on the good side, well, we've seen a big increase in the amount of spending on fresh fruit and vegetables, partly probably because we haven't been able to go to our favourite restaurant in some parts of the country, so we're eating more at home. But even as restaurants have opened up, we're still spending a lot more on fresh fruit and vegetables. And maybe this is just a rational health response, good health response to what is a health crisis. So long, I guess, may that last. But unfortunately, we're also spending more on things like alcohol and gambling. Some of this may be just spending on cards compared to what we were spending on cash. In terms of spending on alcohol, we know that bars and clubs and pubs have been closed in many parts of the country. So some of that spending is just been drinking at home. But even as they've opened up, that spending still remains slightly uncomfortably high. Now, what we're going to look at in the future, we know that Auckland's moving to alert level 1, so we do expect a further increase in spending in Auckland. And that's partly because with less restrictive social distancing measures, there'll be able to be larger gatherings and events there. But what we're really focused on is what's going to happen in the months beyond, heading towards summer. So in summer, well, first of all, we know that the government's wage subsidy that's helped cushion the blow for many workers and firms over COVID is starting to wane. And unfortunately, that's likely to mean an increase in job losses and business failures. The other thing is, as we move into the busy summer period, this is the typical busy period for many tourist providers. And this year, we're unlikely to see the typical surge in international visitor arrivals that we get. So unfortunately, that's going to be quite a big hit for that sector. Now, while it's been encouraging that Kiwis are getting behind the tourism sector and travelling and seeing our country, during summer it's unlikely to be enough to offset that hole left by the lack of international visitor arrivals. Now, we hope that you've enjoyed our inaugural spending tracking report, and we look to release this early next year. Until then, thank you for watching.